Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And can I assure the Minister that when I came into Delhi Airport this morning at 2 a.m., I was very, very thoroughly checked. The last time I had the chance to visit Delhi was just over 2 years ago, when the BBC was celebrating a big expansion of our news bureau and operation here, and the launch also of 4 new Indian language services. And our goal was and indeed remains to allow the BBC's trusted news to reach millions more people globally. I thought of this again last year when I heard of the sad death of the former finance minister here, Arun Jaitley, because while I was here, I had the chance to speak to him at length. We had a very long, discursive conversation in his office, which included his experience during the state of emergency in the 70s when he was imprisoned for more than 18 months. And he told me that during that time, he'd managed to smuggle in a tiny transistor radio, remember them? And at 6 in the morning, before the guards were awake, he was able to listen to the news on the BBC World Service. And he said it was his lifeline to what was going on in the world, to what was going on in his own country, just as it has been for so many others living in captivity, in fear or uncertainty for nearly 90 years. And I want to return to the theme of trust in news, in media, in a moment. But first, I'd like to talk about trust more widely. Trust in the democratic institutions of government, of business and media. Trust in democracy itself. I want to say a little about what has changed in this new age of disruption and how I believe that we in the media should and can respond. At the start of this year, I spoke at the launch in London of the Edelman Trust Barometer. Many of you may know this. This is an annual survey that tracks trust in business, government, media and NGOs in 28 countries. It tells a really interesting story of change over the last 20 years. In the UK, the big story is clear. Trust in democratic institutions has gone down. More and more people feel that their voices are not being heard in the national debate. More and more communities feel their interests are not being served. And I know this is a trend that we are seeing to a greater or a lesser extent all over the world. But there's one statistic I find really striking. More than 8 out of 10 people are currently concerned about losing their job to automation or recession or competition or immigration. It seems that fears are stifling hope. Many are losing faith in societal progress, in the idea that hard work will make you better off. The result is that the trust in democracy and the institutions that underpin it has suffered. One trend that has emerged in recent years in this survey is that in many countries, business is increasingly the most trusted institution, ahead of the media, ahead of government. Where once people looked to their political leaders to respond to the most pressing problems facing our societies, many now look instead to their business leaders. 3/4 of people believe CEOs should be leading change, not waiting for governments to act first, on everything from fair wages to automation, carbon emissions to internet regulation. Indeed, I was recently speaking to the head of one of the really big global tech companies based in Europe, and he said that he thought that by 2050, only ethical companies with a strong ethical code, would survive. And what's certainly clear is that business success depends more and more, not just on what you do, but how you do it. And the biggest winners will be those with the highest ideals. I believe that this is really, really true for the media sector too. The past decade has been a period of real disruption for the world's media. In just a few short years, fake news has become the poison in the bloodstream of our societies, undermining trust and destabilizing democracies. Right around the world, we're witnessing its power to distort our discourse, to fuel divisions, influence the decisions of voters, even to spark violence and cause loss of life. In countries where democracy is fragile and digital literacy is low, the rise of misinformation now constitutes an urgent crisis. But frankly, it's an issue that needs addressing everywhere. And it's set to grow worse as the weapons of warfare through disinformation become even more sophisticated. Deepfake video technology means that we're entering an era when anyone can be made to look as if they have said or done anything. It's never been harder to separate fact from falsehood, certainty from assertion, truth from downright lies. The rise of social media has brought about huge benefits to us all, no doubt about that, but it's also dramatically accelerated this trend. People increasingly choose news sources which reflect their worldviews rather than challenging them. Social media echo chambers serve to widen divides in society and encourage us to see only one side of the argument, and that's ours. For me, one of the most worrying results has been the constant anonymous threats that journalists now face online, simply for reporting on opinions that others don't want to hear. Traditional journalism is now frequently viewed as part of the problem rather than the solution. Every day we see attempts to target, to troll, or intimidate journalists, and ultimately stop them from doing their job. They face growing physical threats too, and violence too, including here in Delhi during the recent rioting. Ultimately, this represents an assault on freedom of expression and on our duty to seek out the facts without fear or favour, to speak the truth to power, no matter how inconvenient that might be. This has serious consequences for us as both democracies and societies. For a democracy that cannot rely on access to truth is a democracy undermined, and a society in which two sides of a debate have no need to engage with one another on the basis of a genuine appreciation of what is happening and difference is a society profoundly weakened. The growing coronavirus crisis all around the world has made this even clearer. It highlights just how essential it is that the public can rely on the information they need, reported in a manner that is calm, measured, and accurate. This is why I believe that we in traditional media now have a more vital role to play than almost at any other time in our history. The values that we're built on and the principles of good journalism that define what we do have never been more needed. It's a moment of huge opportunity, a time for us to redouble our commitment to trust in media and stand up for integrity in news like never before.